Why, hello there. I'm Roxtus.
And I am Solgale.
Welcome to Games, Things to Improve. This is my experience on what's been currently lacking in games. So to start off, number one, story. What depicts a good story? Storytelling, something retold, experienced, and learned. Some games or stories keep fumbling in the dark, keep struggling for that meaning. So knowing what you want to portray beforehand is a good bonus if you're starting up a game or a game design. Character depth, having an understanding of a main character, the problem, purpose, conclusion. A story revolves around a portrayed problem. The problem gives the story some meaning, as in Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Ganondorf is shown right at the beginning of the game, appearing in Link's Nightmare. This is good as the problem is portrayed right at the start of the game. The problem gives the purpose for the protagonist to push through hardships to solve and fix a problem, giving the conclusion that either the problem was corrected or uncorrected. Problems give a landmark, a significant event that happened during the story's time lapse, so having a problem is very key to having a good story. You want to have a problem, to have something you feel you are fixing. Logical storytelling, which is the mindset of a character, staying true to a character's personality or portrayal, not turning on a dime with their character's personality to portray something that they definitely aren't. As in Majora's Mask or Skyrim, having side characters that are living throughout their daily lives as per normal, giving them also personalities as well. Telling a story only once, as going beyond the problem or a problem becomes too repetitive or boring. There's nothing really interesting beyond the problem that are intriguing that's actually happening. Good ideas, puzzles, skills, keeping it challenging. Difficulty for players. Players typically don't want a game that's too hard to the point of insurmountability, and they don't want it to be too easy that the game flies by in an instant, posing no real challenge. Now that depends on the player. But players typically love a game that presses on skill, making it more enjoyable, showing sufficiency in that said skill or puzzle solving to play. It just becomes more fulfilling. So especially with puzzle solving, a little bit more detailed note is not being lost trying to figure out a stage in a puzzle or the next step, what to do with certain puzzles. Keeping it clear versus confusing, what you should or what you need to do. Communication, it needs to be clear what you're asking of a player to do. Making sure that your verbal prompts, visual indicators, or written literature is detailed to the point of being precise, and not leaving any room for misinterpretation or wrongful presumption, which becomes misleading. Within the first hand, being crystal clear within communication. To stay objective with a puzzle or a sequence when it remains unresolved for an extended period or duration, resolving the puzzle or issue within 30 seconds or within an adequate time frame. I can remember instances where quests would give me a prompt once, giving vital information on what my next step would be, only for me to have gone over that prompt without reading it or comprehending it, as reading everything becomes monotonous. And upon questioning what I was supposed to do for my next step, I take the time to read the quest log, at that point revealing that there was nothing written down on what I was supposed to do for my next step. This can be further compounded by having multiple quests to do and having to remember what to do for each quest. You're just going to forget.
Yeah, I definitely would.
Therefore, having to consult a walkthrough, that's just not nice if you have to go back. Secrets are always a good thing to have. Sneaky little areas that you can put in.
I like looking for secrets.
Secrets are always a good thing. Origin and original, live versus static, consistency within a system. I don't like it to have to deviate from a game's original concept or an idea. You need to stay true to the original design, or show the same intent or intention of what was supposed to be, so that a game doesn't change so drastically that it can no longer represent itself as what it is, a work of art. A static game is keeping the original state, condition, or the idea of a game, so you can say the name of the game at any point in time, and it doesn't change your concept of a game. A live game is a consistently changing, updating, or improving game. Improving is okay, but changing core concepts of the game is like taking a story and rewriting it, something you should never do. If you are changing the idea of the game, that's never a good idea, because you can't just say the name of the game and go, hey, this is the game. No, it completely changed.
Yeah.
And it's no longer the same state as it was 5 years ago. It completely changed the concept of the game. As time moves on, things seem to be more broken in live games. While not always true, but for some I can see this happening, where over time you'll see more things breaking as things get changed, and just making sure that maintenance is always happening. To make games well and as intended, without bugs, fully finished and fleshed out, without flaws. A system not being too complex or complicated, being simplified. A good example of this is having too many insignificant add-ons, further complicating something that shouldn't, to begin with, be complicated. Instead of being itself and being viable on its own, this complicates the structure to fix something that on its own should have functioned or should have worked to begin with.
Yeah.
Especially when it isn't needed, as in Nier Automata, having pod chips in a game. That is story oriented. So Nier Automata is story oriented. At the end of the game, you have the prompt to delete your save game file and put, as in quotes, a book on the shelf after you're done reading it. Therefore, farming pod chips becomes irrelevant to the main game design and play, because it's a story oriented game. It's not a longevity game where I can farm permanently. It's a story oriented game that's supposed to be played once, done, put your book on the shelf, leave it.
Yeah.
And come back to it when you want to. Complexity versus simplicity, fully defined and easy to understand. Customization and cosmetics. When you do have customization in a game, try to have full customization rather than part-way customization. Customization isn't always needed, though, to make a great game. When it is a main feature in a game, players will spend hours in character customization and creation. So, always having the option to optimize your character at any point in time is a benefit to have to that game. Farming, RNG, and acquisition. Games that are too hard to farm are intentionally or unintentionally created this way to force players to take time to farm good loot, and this can be intentionally or unintentionally. Developers can make it easy to acquire loot, it's within their power. Example of this is a shop or a store. This would resonate with players as a general rule of thumb. People just want to have fun, and when you're farming for too long, it tends to drag on. And for me, a typical farm should take less than 60 minutes, typically 25 to 30. People just want to have fun. They don't want to have their time sucked out of their day, especially within an accomplishment of, or when not being able to accomplish a goal. This makes playing a game tedious, monotonous, and aggravating.
Yeah.
This can lead to players becoming uninterested and bored, even if they love the game, depending on the difficulty. They can and will eventually become frustrated within a game design or developers. And a rule of chances, a simple rule of chances here. 20% per 5 minutes is a pretty good chance. As in Warframe, systems drop chance is a 22.56% chance. This could be a little bit higher or a little bit shorter farming time, as within Warframe, acquiring the systems sometimes is the hardest thing to do. You could be sitting there for a good 25-ish minutes plus, and then you just have a string of bad luck. You're never able to actually get the systems, and that's the point where you could up the chance beyond 25 or 20%.
Yeah, and sometimes you would get the systems like right off the bat, but then you wouldn't get another part.
Well, sometimes it's just that you're lucky that you get the systems.
Yeah.
And sometimes you won't get another part, but those other parts are of a higher chance. So it's not like it's not giving you those parts, it's just the point where maybe you just have bad RNG, and then again, you can always go back to the shop idea. Hey, I walk up to the shop, spend some money, I get whatever the item is, walk away. There can be rarer chances, but this is only as an exception when there are special items developers want to remain rare. So a 2% chance over 5 minutes, That's a pretty good chance because about in an hour you're going to have a 20% chance to get the item, so that's a 1/5% chance. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Going even further down is going to be way too hard to that point where you're going to be taking
Definitely, yeah.
years. Sometimes it can be, just depends on RNG. And RNG, again, same thing, it just depends on what your percent chance is.
Yeah.
5 minutes or less, preferably less time, as sometimes in Warframe, as Warframe systems never drop, overall just wasting less player time. Enough said. Meta. Something that is overpowered over another. So, like in League of Legends, BF Sword, or another terminology is BFG. In essence, a meta in gaming terminology is a generally agreed upon strategy by the community. Said strategy is considered to be the most optimal way to win and has the best performance at a specific task. Some people have defined the meta as an acronym meaning most effective tactics available. Developers can make a game balanced, it's within their power, something called DPS. When you see a meta, it's because the developer made it that way. Everyone knows chess is a pretty fair and balanced game. Same can be said with checkers. It depends how a player plays that affects the outcome. Only when removing the other player's pieces does that game, a chess or checkers, become unfair. So if I were sitting across from you and I was playing a game of chess or checkers, and we were going to start a game of chess, per se, and no moves have been taken, but I remove 2 or 3 of your pieces, that then becomes unfair because you're starting the game with less pieces.
I'd be like, give me my pieces back.
Give you your pieces back. Exactly. But the thing is the game chess is meant to be played with 16 pieces on your side and 16 pieces on my side. So that's the equivalent as just having a meta. Something is more powered or less powered than something else. You're removing pieces.
Yeah.
Only a developer can remove pieces. Everything should be viable. Again, people just want to have fun. They don't want to be conformed to a meta. Teemo, as the line becomes great, though, on this when talking about heroes and champions. I will say this for heroes and champions. For abilities, tools, and kits, this becomes harder, as development is based on creativity and creation, what a developer can make up. Invisibilities, dashes, mind controls, swapping places, grabs, and etc. Tools and utilities.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to actual damage and damage over an area, AOE damage, this can be balanced. Damage over time, it's all balanceable. Pull up a spreadsheet, start doing some math. It's basic math. You can do it.
Yeah.
In conclusion to meta and farming, numbers are numbers. Numbers do not lie. It's just simple, basic math. And when it comes to game meta or acquisition farming time RNG, intentionally or unintentionally, developers created their game, and it's a result of their work. It's their product. So if you as the player see a meta or a farm, this is a flaw. They need to correct it. Simple enough. Now it depends on the farm or the meta.
Yeah.
If it's something that's negatively impacting your game. If it's not really impacting your game, like we said earlier, if you have to get systems or something like that, and it's pretty easy to get a hold of, it's not really negatively impacting your game.
Yeah.
It's something that's easy enough where it's not a negative flaw. You can see it as a negative flaw if potentially you never get the item.
Which could happen.
Which could happen. Just depends on the situation, but sometimes it's not a flaw. A good question is, how long has that flaw existed? If it's a duration, if it's been persisting. Don't mistake it. A meta and farming are always negative to a game when taking too much time farming, or to the point of fair play and balance within a meta where you should have and achieve fairness or balance, but you don't. Overall, what makes a good game? Well, it depends on the core of the game. The 3 main things: story, skill, difficulty, puzzles if the game is challenging, the original idea that preserves the game in its original state. Sometimes it depends on a meta and farm, but not all the time. It is off of these 3 major things that we can discern a quality of a game, although there are minor ingredients that as well affect our tastes. Dreamer. There is ingenuity on both sides, the developers and the players. Both inputs are good, as new ideas can come to life. Again, try to keep the original idea that preserves the game. If you have seen the Star Ring video, I mentioned that something seemed to be missing or half done. The ideas are there, they just haven't done anything with them. So you could do something, improve or include. It's really a good idea though. This is because it's thought-provoking and it's provocative, helping the player or development think of new ideas, especially if something's half done, then it's to the point, hey, we could do something, what could we do with it? The effort, details, ingredients, aspects, or elements matter. Making it so that every little element is enjoyable, this should be the objective of any game. Fishing, as an example, the more effort and time spent to achieving the pleasantry, how pleasant a game is, shows to the player how much fun they can have. Anything less teeters on the brink of destruction. You don't want players leaving the game because you haven't taken the time and effort to make your game fun and enjoyable. Our tastes are like our favorite flavor of ice cream or cake. No one can tell you what your favorite flavor is, nor can they tell you what makes you smile and enjoy something. It is a per-person basis, your point of view, your personal preference. That's why at weddings, they have a 3-tier cake. Each tier can be of a different flavor to appease almost everyone. There are already games that you enjoy, there will be some that you don't enjoy. Remember how a game affects you reflects the true flavor and the taste of the game back to you. Good games are usually adventure-type games for me, like FNAF, the original Zeldas, Warframe, Dark Souls, Elden Ring, Minecraft, GTA, Gmod, especially Prop Hunt, Lego games, Metroid. My absolute favorites are the original Zelda, I can name 5, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, and Link's Awakening. Link's Awakening 2, I remember being in the car and being able to play those games as a kid. Sharing the little Game Boy Color. We only had one Game Boy Color, but we would share the Game Boy Color amongst us.
The only
kids.
Legend of Zelda game I've played was Skyward Sword.
Yeah.
And
We'll have to.
I couldn't play that for a while because I had the wrong Wii remote for it.
Oh? You didn't have the right... Oh, you had to have a Motion Plus.
Yeah, I had a Motion Plus.
Okay.
I have to have a Motion Plus.
But we could probably play Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask as well. Those are really good. So, and plus 2 Warframe, those are probably the best games of my flavor, my cup of tea, or my ice cream, or cake, slice of cake.
Mm-hmm.
For most players, playing whatever you want to play, depending on the time, mood, and what your interest is at that point in time.
Yeah.
So, that is Games Things to Improve. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye!